Testing 1, 2, testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, I started. I didn't start. Come on. I gotta get a different mouse and stuff. Right. Testing 1, 2, testing 1, 2, 3. No, and every time they talk, it'll. And if I minimize it.
Hello? Can anybody hear me? Oh,
Yes.
great.
Hey, Kimma.
Hello?
How you doing, bud?
Good. Still get a minute. Always the longest minute. Bring the Parks and Recreation Committee to order, and I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. The first item on the agenda is discussion of proposed donation to fund Laurel Street Tennis Court renovation into pickleball court. Following last month's committee, I did reach out to the donor and propose what council had directed me to. While he's very supportive of the town of Somerville, as proposed, that was not a layout that he was interested in investing in. So I did just want to bring this item back to you one more time to see if you had any other questions or anything for me.
Yes, I guess my feeling is, and I've heard from other people on council, it's not scientific, but it happened going by the tennis courts and pickleball courts. And most of the time there's an empty tennis court somewhere. And a lot of times there's nobody playing tennis, but there's almost always people at the pickleball court. And the fact that we have $100,000 to redo these tennis courts, which there's not enough room to make them tournament worthy because of the back wall, I would propose that we move forward on doing the pickleball courts and to let everybody know we are bringing somebody in to facilitate a workshop so that we can plan for the next 20, 25 years and maybe come up with some places where we can have tournaments in whatever sport that the state is short on. So I hope you all participate in that, and we will do the best we can to get tennis courts as soon as we can.
I agree with that. And with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to send this to full council that we accept this donation that's being made and turn those 2 tennis courts into pickleball courts.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, but I need to say a few words. When we did the first outdoor pickleball coach at Doty, it was sponsored by a company, Sparkle, I think is the name.
Sparkling Ice.
A drink company. And at that time we did, it was pretty inexpensive. I think it was around 15,000.
50. It was 50.
50, yeah. Well, anyway, now things are getting very expensive, and we are a growing town. We have certain budget concerns and constrictions. Now, this situation here, I can go along with this because we're getting $100,000 and it's not coming from the taxpayers. But we're going to have to be a little bit more egalitarian in the future about providing recreation to all concerned, depending on, what their predilections are. So I don't want us to cast tennis on the way to the side in favor of pickleball or vice versa. We also try to support the schools like Somerville High School with their tennis program, and sometimes they use the courts quite a bit during tennis season. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman. I'll second this. We'll move forward and send it to council for their consideration.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Uh,
The second item on the agenda tonight is a discussion of proposed modifications to the Somerville Ashley River Preserve Phase 2 scope of work. I believe it was in July that council, Beth, if you want to show the one that's in the slide with the survey first, that'd be fine. In July, council approved a scope of work for Phase 2. And so we have started work on that. The survey that Beth has up on the screen now shows you, they have encountered a lot of issues. Everything below the red line that kind of cuts through that peninsula, they have not been able to access. It essentially is pluff mud, marsh. So knowing this, Mr. Jackson and I went out there with them to relook at it. To be able to put piers off of those areas, it would have to be all pilings. It would be very expensive. It's a very long distance that we would have to cover. So their recommendation was to scale back the number of piers. Beth, if you want to go to the next one. So some of the things. Yes, perfect. So up at the top, that green area, that is that parking area. Nothing with that has changed. The blue trail coming in, that is as it was planned. The orange that you see, that will be boardwalk. At the time, when we looked at the scope, it hadn't been determined what kind of path that would be, whether that would be asphalt, boardwalk, nature trail, et cetera. So they're recommending boardwalks for everything that is orange. You can see the different docks. If we eliminated those, we would leave one at the very end of the peninsula, kind of the furthest out that they were able to survey. So you'd be able to walk out to that dock. You would go back, or there is kind of a natural path, some raised edge along the water that you could do a nature path. So that would stay. So I just wanted to get some feedback from council if they were comfortable moving forward with this kind of revision. And then, you know, even though we're eliminating some of the piers, because the paths are going to have to be boardwalks. It's hard to say exactly if there will be any cost savings by the reduction of those piers. But if council did want to adjust the scope to include either the restrooms or the pavilions, we could adjust for that now as well.
Yeah, and this is FYI, just to get everybody's thoughts. Hopefully it'll be less and we can get the bathrooms in or the pavilion, what anybody sees. And
But the big change, if you guys don't want to change the scope at all, the big change is the reduction in the number of piers.
I'm fine with that. And then maybe down the line, we can look back at it and see if there's any way we can put in 1 or 2 piers, but at least we can go forward now without them.
we are planning on putting a pier at the end of that orange out on the peninsula.
Yeah, I see that
And
one.
anybody that's familiar with the area, there's a fallen tree right there. And you
Oh.
can look back. And the nice thing is the orange line being back on a berm that was put there. It'll be more hidden from the river. So the line of sight between the end of that peninsula and the floating dock that we have now will be clean. If anybody has any concerns, you can just let myself or Amy know.
That was everything that I had.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the Planning and Development Committee to order. Ms. Schuler?
Thank you. Good evening. We have one item on the agenda. Petition by Everett Asbury Knight Jr. to annex Dorchester County TMS number 144000070 10.86 acres located off Greenway Boulevard, currently zoned R3, Single Family Attached District in Dorchester County, and will be zoned GB, General Business upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 5. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on October 17th, 2022.
Any questions or discussion on this?
I make a motion that we forward this with a recommendation of approval to full council.
I second.
All in favor, raise your hand by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
I second it.
Third. All in
Aye.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So Bill,
I'll call to order the Public Safety Committee.
Chairman, Chief Wright's running 2 minutes behind you, dealing with a employee. So
Because we're gonna need him for the item A and B.
Sir.
You want to
Yeah,
give
I
your
can-
quarterly update?
I get a little promotion, that's great. How's everyone doing tonight? Fine. Just give you guys an update real quick of the last quarter. Check this off as of October 31st, rather than carrying it through the month. As far as our incident counts, it's up there on the screen in front of you now. We are still trending above where we were last year, and right now we're sitting on about 5,400 calls for the year. That's at this point. So we are anticipating breaking 6,000 incidents again for this year, just based on the current projections and what we've been doing for the last couple of years. So another busy year for us. Thanks. Some significant incidents to point out: the Ashley Drive house fire that we had back in September, and of course tragically resulted in loss of life, as well as the Charlie Station building fire, that was apartment fire that occurred back at the end of September, also resulted in the loss of 2 lives. That fire, so a very tragic month for us in the fire loss. And you know, thinking back over the course of my career, I don't recall a time where we've seen 3 fatalities in this short of time span, and ever in Somerville. And Mary, you might could help me out there, but you know, in my career, is even going back to the days of City of Charleston, I don't recall this. So I do want to just touch on the Charlie Station fire for a minute. It was a major incident and a tragic fire, but despite the tragedy, our people worked harder that night than I've ever seen firefighters work. They showed up that night to a well-involved building fire of over 30 units in the building, and that one building was fully involved. The second building was about 50% involved, and we had a wind-driven event that night because it was the night before Hurricane Ian came in on top of us. So we're dealing about a 25 to 30 mile an hour sustained wind. So really a pretty significant wind event. Fire was spreading quickly to a third building, which would put a third building involved that night. But our firefighters jumped in right there and made a strong stop. So I just want to point that out to their work they put in that night. So anyway, quite an effort. That was, you know, I was proud of them for that. If you ask them, they're still looking at it as a loss, of course, because it lost a life. So that's just wanted to point that out to their performance. Tropical Storm Ian, of course, came in that next day. So it was a long 36 hours for us in the fire department. We did respond to a house fire with Dorchester County during that event, as well as cleared numerous streets from trees that had fallen during the storm. Had a vehicle versus building out on Highway 78 during the past quarter. That did pretty good damage to that building. Is at the corner of 78 and Bryan. We went in there and shored up the front of the building, the facade, to keep it from falling and hurt some windows along the glass. Just some other stuff that's happening for us. Station 1, we finished up our remodeling project that's been going on for the last few months. If y'all get a chance, I encourage you to walk through the station. It really spruced up the place quite a bit. I know Councilman Touchberry and Lisa, of course, and Councilman Brown, y'all got an opportunity to walk through the Facilities Committee. So a really nice job that TUPCO did over there. Station 6 is moving along very nicely. They're actually ahead of what I was projecting them to be, which is a good thing. So they are finishing up the site work now. They're putting earthquake drains in this week. That'll help prevent the foundation from having problems should we experience an earthquake. And expecting to be able to start digging foundation footings next week. So that's where we are now. Projected to finish in June of next year. The only caveat to that is the generator that for the building won't be in until August at earliest. So I just having some supply problems there with that. But everything else is online pretty good to finish up the building side of the generators. We took delivery of a side-by-side UTV this past month. In October. We'll use this vehicle to attend festivals and transport patients if we get them in and around the festivals. Also the Sawmill Trail. We never had a really good response vehicle for the trail. So having this vehicle with us will allow us to run out on the trail to get a patient and get back to where we'd meet an ambulance to get transported to the hospital. We took delivery of 3 vehicles. It's taken since November of last year to get these vehicles in. But fortunately, we're probably get those in service. We're getting radios installed now and then get lettered and then we'll have them in service. Only going to be surplus in one vehicle that we'll bring to you guys probably next month. So it's a 2005 van that we've had for quite a while. So that's going to come out of service. The other is a 2014 pickup truck that's going to get transferred down to another employee. And then the third is a 2014, I believe, Explorer that we're going to have for a spare vehicle. We are getting together with a group of our own firefighters just to do some goal setting and strategic planning for the 2023, just kind of set us on a good path for next year. We just finished up an accelerated hiring process where we brought on 2 people. We started this program with 5 candidates. So this is basically when we try to hire certified firefighters. They're already certified out there, and we put them through a 6-week orientation program. We started with 5, we ended with 2. So we're looking at the effectiveness of this program. One of the biggest problems is the hiring pool itself of certified firefighters that are available to come to work. So it's just not a large applicant pool out there for certified firefighters to come to us. So it's just one of those issues we're trying to determine whether or not it's worth keeping that process going. But it's also a good stopgap for us between putting on a 6-month recruit school so we can get people on the floor faster. So,
Chief,
yes,
let me
sir.
ask you something.
Sure.
How are you standing right now as far as vacancies?
Funny you should ask, Councilman Brown. Next slide, please. Right now, I'm going to answer your question right now. Right now, we are sitting at 9 openings in the department. We just closed out our application process for a full recruit school to start in January. We have 56 total applicants. These are all non-certified firefighters, so we have to train them all. We have 32 people that have responded for our pre-hiring process. It'll start tomorrow. And so we'll be doing pre-hire agility tests tomorrow and make a selection from that list based on that interviews and the agility test that starts tomorrow. Once again, this is a 5.5 month process. We will probably look at we have 9 openings currently. We'll probably hire above that and anticipating of attrition rate throughout the recruit school.
So we compensate them during recruit school.
Yes, sir.
And it's 5.5
months.
Do you have any, so out of the 32, do you have any idea how many?
Right now, we only know if all 32 of those will show up to test. So we won't know until after Wednesday. So we're looking for at least 12. And hopefully we'll be able to build on a list. Something we're going to try this year with the recruit school is usually when we get a dropout, it's within the first 2 weeks. That's when we see the most dropouts of the school. So we're going to bring them on 2 weeks ahead of the academy curriculum this year. And because once we get into the fire academy curriculum, we can't just add another employee because they're already behind. So we're going to start them 2 weeks early, just do some of our in-house stuff with them for those 2 weeks. So we'll finish up 2 weeks earlier, but basically taking 2 weeks off the back half and putting on the front. And that'll allow us to kind of get them introduced to PT and what daily fire station life is like, or daily recruit school's life is like. And if we have them drop within that short period of time, maybe we'll have a candidate list that we could fill from after that. So that's what we're kind of looking at doing now. we want to keep that class full. Last year, we had pretty good success last year with our recruit school. We started with 19 and finished with 17. That's one of the best classes we've had since we've been doing the program. So we hope to kind of continue on with that. We did finish up we received our BLS certification, our basic life support, basically from DHEC for our EMT program. Back in November 1st is actually when they gave us a certification. This will allow us to administer some drugs for our before EMS's arrival. Basically just some minor stuff, aspirin for heart attacks and amphetamines for allergic reactions, difficulty breathing, and stuff like that. So we'll be able to take some more advanced life-saving measures before EMS's arrival. EMS is getting pretty swamped these days, so this is just allows us to better serve our public. Aside from that, we've had the Low Country Firefighter Support Team. That's Chief Mishu and his group. If y'all are familiar with them, they've been around our stations quite a bit for the last few months, just kind of checking in on our people. With the 3 fire fatalities, vehicle accident that we had that responded to as a fatal, and of course Captain Sott passed away. Our personnel actually responded to Kenny's house that day, and had to work CPR. So we just been kind of checking on them to make sure they're doing okay, not having any effects of those tragedies they've seen in the last short time. Thanks. All right, so we're talking about recruitment and retention. We touched on it a little bit in our strategic planning session last month, and it's something we've been looking at hard in our department now for a while. So year to date, we've had 12 resignations. 3 of those 12 went to other municipal departments. So we just keep kind of asking ourselves, what are we doing? So we started a mentorship with for our new hires and recruits. This is stuff that we can do on our own, basically our own, within our own influence, our own authority, I guess, without coming and asking you guys for more money or something like that. So within our own means. So we started a mentorship for new hires. And I think that was a tremendous help for our recruit school and why we had the success with that last year. We also give them an introduction to financial planning through the recruit school, just to kind of say, this is how you got to live on the $36,000 a year that you make when you start out. We're doing a lot of leadership training with our mid-level managers, our company officers, just to kind of make sure they're working to create that positive work environment in the stations. Each firehouse has its own basically subculture within the organization. So we have to make sure we watch that pretty close to make sure they're kind of living up to the standards that we set for them. And then, of course, praising and promoting the current benefits, as Councilman Brown was just talking about, the cancer research or the cancer benefit that the state legislation just passed recently. We're just making sure our people know about those benefits. And actually, 2 of our personnel recently received those benefits from cancer. So let's go. Thanks. All right, we're looking at a schedule change. We're going to try next year as well, too. This is a 48-96 shift schedule. So basically, it takes this current 24-48 and goes to 2 days on, 4 days off. It's a pretty, I'd say it's not a new schedule. It kind of started on the West Coast. There's a pen right here. I keep trying to stick in my hand. It kind of started on the West Coast and migrated across this way. Around us and departments that are using it now are Beaufort, Bluffton, Hilton Head, Irmo. Within our state, they're using the schedule now. So basically, our guys will come in. Yeah, so come in work 48 on, and then they're off for 4 straight days. The benefits of this, it just kind of takes the time off and clumps it together, and allows them to be home for a longer period of time straight without being interrupted. So we kind of talked to our people about it, our shift personnel about it. We surveyed them. More than 60% of our department was in favor of giving it a try. So we're going to start that trial on January 9th. So at the end of the trial, we'll send out another survey to the department to the shift personnel if they are in favor. We're looking for a stronger mandate than 60% to actually make it permanent. But we just wanted to try it before they just said no. So that's where we are now with that. So that will start January 9th.
Chief, are there any cost savings or additional costs to switching to 48?
It's all just equal. It's so right now they either work 120 hours or 96 hours in the pay period. It's the same amount moving forward with that.
Just out of curiosity, because this sounds good to me. I mean, you said greater than 60%, but I'm assuming that at least a third of the firefighters are not in favor of this.
Right.
Any idea why?
I think,
Inertia.
firefighters they don't like two things, change and the way things are. So, kind of where we go.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, we're gonna give it a shot, see how it goes. We've heard a little bit of pushback. We had some pushback during the meetings. We met with all the shifts. I just did a big shift meeting with all three groups and we had some pushback on it, but all said and done, once a lot of pushback came from just misinformation. You know, they were being told one thing and it was something completely out of left field. Some of them told they were getting told they were gonna get a pay cut and weren't gonna make as much money. And, you know, just all kinds of stuff. So we got all that kind of settled out and you know, I think just getting in front of them face to face. Talk with them, take it well. So just on top of this, just recently, you know, we were kind of doing this out on trying to get out on the front end of it so we could use it as a good recruitment tool if it was successful. But right behind us now, North Charleston's about to try to do the same trial in January as well as Dorchester County. So everybody around us is kind of going head the same direction. We just didn't quite get out fast enough, I guess.
So if you take 2 days off, you get 10 days off.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's right. Just one long day instead of a shorter day, you know, 4 days off. So like I said, same amount of hours a day. Any other questions about that before? Next slide. All right, just some of our challenges we're seeing now. Private sector competition is really kind of coming into this area in the last couple of years into our region. We're seeing the Boeings that have a fire brigade, Volvo's in discussion of putting a fire brigade on. You know, is these people pay well, and as well as not to mention the private sector. That's the opportunities are greater now for our people that are willing to work. So go out and make more money, basically. As I showed earlier, that is our biggest challenge recently has not been to other fire departments. We lost this past year, 3 of 12 resignations went to other fire departments. Concerning in the future is our current benefits packages that we have now. We're falling behind some now, so we're gonna have to do something to catch up. I don't know if y'all saw the city of North Charleston went up significantly in this past July for their salary ranges. Y'all saw in the paper last week, the city of Charleston is looking to do a pretty significant pay raise after the first of the year. And while I know we can't do much we're never going to catch them. And North Charleston chief and I had a conversation last week, and I told him, I said, I can never catch you. Try and you just run away from us with all y'all have down there, all the resources y'all have. But we have to stay competitive. We have to kind of keep that in mind. $1,200 a year, $1,500 a year, even maybe $2,000 a year is not it's a good raise, but it's not a huge raise where it's life changing to someone in our profession. If you start talking 7, 8, 9,000, now you're going out to dinner a few more times a year, a week, a month. So we're just going to have to take a close look at that as we watch what happens with city of Charleston in the next 3 months, and you know, look at that into the next year. So. And of course, cost of living, you know, this past year we did a 3% COLA for our people across the board for public safety. And of course, cost of living is going up 7%, roughly, depending on where you look and what you look at. I had a random thought just riding down the road this afternoon about, you know, the fire service in general. You know, 30 years ago, I started at 16.9, roughly in there, 16,000. So in 30 years, the cost of the increase of salary has gone up about, what's that? A little better than double, you know, what it is right now. So it's like 30, 36 is where we are now, 36.8. So it's going up double, but the cost of a gallon of gas has tripled in the last 30 years. So, you know, it's just, you know, we have to ask ourselves the question, are we keeping up? So, just want to throw it out there just for thought. Is something like I say, I was running down the road and passed a gas station coincidentally and thought about the cost of gas and what our income is. So
I'd hate to look at the cost of housing over 30 years.
right, yeah,
That's more than fuel.
that's right. It truly is. Next slide. I believe that's it. Yeah, just some of the impacts of what we're dealing with our turnover. These skilled positions that we have in the department, driver, for example, it takes a little bit of time to get our people tuned up to drive. So we have to keep them long enough. So for person starts in January, they got 6 months of recruit school. Then we do 6 months of like a probationary period when they're on the shift work floor, just to make sure they retained everything that they learned in 6 months of recruit school. Then we'll cut them loose to start driving. So you're looking at a year before we can get them on the floor to drive. So in the last 2 years, we've hired close to 35 firefighters. That's basically a shift that we have to keep them now long enough to get them up into that seat to where we can get them to drive. So that's what we're seeing with the importance of this retention is. Recruitment, we are working more on retention right now than recruitment because we feel like with the non-certified folks, we do pretty well with those. 56 applicants this go around. So we're seeing the applicants, we just, aren't necessarily seeing the retention side after we get those applicants on board. So, and of course, it knocks into the experience that we have in the fire service, which is very important. Probably 80, I don't know exact percentage. I would guess 80% after the fact. You're learning through experience, and those calls matter. Every time you go on one, you've learned a lot from it. So that experience is so important. And then of course, when we have openings in the department, we're having to cover those openings with overtime. So we're starting to see some burnout of our employees that were working those overtime shifts. So, which is another reason why we're looking at 48-96 schedule, because if they finish up a 72-hour shift in the future, they would at least have another 3 days off before they had to come back. Right now they're working at 48 and they're off 24 and they're coming right back for another 24. So anyway, that's what I have, just for an update. And
Thank you, Chief.
good news.
Chairman, may I speak? Okay. Richard, I just wanted to give on that apartment fire. In addition to the great job they did and what you were talking about, as a Navy firefighter in Goose Creek, I've fought some exotic fires. And with the exceptions of phosphorus, I have never seen a building fire that was so hot. The furniture was evaporated. When I came up, there were nothing, just gone. That amazed me.
I compared it, and the mayor remembers this because we went to it together. Was the Isle of Palms fire back in the late 90s. That's the closest resemblance of what I saw that night on the ground to what in my career. We have very significant fire and wind driven. There's a pine tree in the backyard that just basically exploded because it got hit by the fire up in the town. So you had almost a wildfire effect on that night. So there's a building instead of trees. I mean, yes, sir. Thank you.
We will. Let's go back to now that Chief Wright was able to join us. Let's go to the first item on the agenda. The discussion of animal control intergovernmental agreement.
Yes, sir. Beg my pardon to everyone. I apologize for my tardiness. I was dealing with a HR matter. Discussion of animal control. I am going to defer some of this to council's counsel, Mr. Parker. But it's my understanding there's an intergovernmental agreement that Dorchester County is wanting us to enter into to allow them to come into the town and provide services to the town's people through animal control and also to site people and whatnot. I haven't known of us having one of these before. They've just always done it. They had the authority of the county. That's my understanding that there are some potential legal issues here. So I'll defer it to UGW if you have any.
I think I told council how this came about. Animal control, Dorchester County Animal Control made a case, and the defense attorney said you don't have jurisdiction. And while there is really no case statute, the consensus of legal opinions has been that if it does ever get up to the Supreme Court, you're going to need to have an intergovernmental agreement to withstand a challenge. The intergovernmental agreement proposed by Dorchester County will not cost the town a dime. One thing that I did find out from John Frampton is they have an agreement with the animal control place costing $400,000 a year. So I don't think the town of Somerville wants to get into the business of animal control and bear that expense. Bottom line is we're going to be doing what we have done historically for ever since I've been here. And it won't cost the town, and so I urge council to go ahead and sign on.
I concur, as well as they do a tremendous job for us. They really do. They've never, as long as I've worked here, we haven't had issues with animal control. They've always come out and pulled their weight and helped us out. And we're the only municipality around that does not have our own animal control. I say that too loud. But if they're willing to do this, we need to enter into it.
The other thing that I mentioned, it can be done by resolution or by ordinance, and I'll leave that up to the committee, how they want to do it.
Well, I would prefer personally it be by resolution. I don't think it's something that is going to require two readings, either to go into or to get out of. And, you know, kudos as a defense attorney myself, kudos to Ms. Kimmons for some creative lawyering and zealous advocacy on behalf of a client. But I think she's, with all respect, I think she was wrong, and I don't think this is necessary. I've read the county ordinance. It clearly states that it applies to municipalities in the county as long as it's not, as long as it doesn't contradict municipal ordinances. We don't have any municipal ordinances on animal control. So I don't see the harm in entering an agreement. I think that the county blinked on one individual case, but that's just my opinion. I do have a question. What do we do about animal control in the parts of the town of Somerville that are not in Dorchester County?
Berkeley County has their own animal control. Charleston County Sheriff's Office has their own animal control.
Do we need?
Most of our issues are in Dorchester
Well,
County.
most of our residential population, I mean, we have very little residential in Charleston. A lot of what's in Berkeley is commercial. Do we need, I guess it begs the question, do we need intergovernmental agreements with the other two counties? If we don't, I think it answers. What I'm saying is that we don't actually need to do this with Dorchester County, but if it makes the county feel better, let's do it.
They do a great job.
They do an excellent job.
We got 12 cats out of a neighbor's house.
I've been with them and I've been against them, and they do a very good job.
So as I understand it, correct, Chief, they were servicing city hall at the time that we didn't have a fleet.
That's correct.
So just to deal with the legal side.
As far as I'm concerned, they're deputized, their deputization of them to do that.
They wear badge
Yeah,
that
they-
says Dorchester County Sheriff's Deputy. So, you know, I think there was some issue that they don't actually report to the sheriff, but you know, I don't think that's of any importance. And when you read the county animal control ordinances, it clearly applies to the town of Somerville. So I mean, I think it's a big to do about nothing. Congratulations to Ms. Kimmons and advocating on behalf of her client, but I don't agree that we would lose, that the county would lose on appeal.
All right, Beth. Thank you. She cleaned this up. It's really pretty now. Thank you. So this one's gonna be a little long. I'll try to, and Richard did a wonderful job. We have some numbers we want to share with everybody. Obviously, you can look at our calls for service, where we are now, where we were last year for the entire year. We are at 4 homicides right now that are all solved for this year. Wish we didn't have any, but we've done a pretty good job of cleaning that up as far as getting cases closed and people and properly charged. Traffic offenses, pretty impressive numbers there. I did make sure to add in DUIs for Councilman McIntosh. Traffic collisions, obviously, they're up tremendously. The mental health calls, you can see they're up as well. I mean, you just go down the line, pretty much everything's trending in an upward fashion, except for ICAC cases. We're down 10 on that, and that's good. Next,
Do you have any thoughts on why,
you can go back.
do you have any thoughts on why traffic offenses and traffic accidents are up, but not DUIs?
We had, I could tell you a few things, and obviously you can make excuses if I wanted to, but the reason why traffic offenses are up is we're promoting proactive policing in the town. And we realize that traffic is our biggest problem in the town. So we wanted to address that, make sure that, you know, we bring down the fatality numbers and whatnot. As far as DUIs, we had some lag time where some of our grant officers who handle DUIs, and they mainly contribute to the DUI arrest. They have had we had one that was out on FMLA. We had some issues there, manpower issues. So we had to, yes, sir.
When we have that question, when we have things like that happen, because they're gonna happen, we have a couple officers that are just kind of dedicated to DUI enforcement. They're getting state or federal grants to do that. Do our officers utilize the highway patrol?
No, sir. So we supplant or we put people, we have to keep those positions filled as part of the grant mandate. So we have to move other traffic officers who may work just collisions into those positions temporarily. We do more for the highway patrol than they do for us. Nothing against the highway patrol, but they don't have enough troopers to do much of anything right now. And they're slowly increasing their numbers, but we actually handle a lot of collisions for the highway patrol because they have one trooper working from I-95 to here, and he's got to drive 45 minutes to get here, and my officer can have it done in 10 minutes. We just don't make charges, criminal charges on it. But
it just kind of been my experience that the highway patrol over the last 10 years is just, you're right. They have vacancy issues that dwarf anything that you
Yes, sir.
or Chief Waring have to deal with, but there would appear to be a overwhelming focus on the highway patrol on DUIs.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what else they do other than make DUI arrests.
well, they're working collisions pretty much right now. That's all they can do with the manpower they have. But productivity and proactivity is what we're promoting. And I think that's where you're seeing those numbers. And just because you see the offenses does not mean there's citations. Obviously, you can look at the court docket and see that a lot of warning citations and whatnot. All right, next. The crisis intervention team, I just think that I wanted to highlight this again because we've been tracking it so far as we've gone along this year. The newly employed team consisted of 2 officers and 1 mental health clinician. So far, they've handled 136 reports this year, 42 emergency protective custody intakes, and they respond to 77 patrol assist. The mental health clinician has conducted 77 follow-up investigations, 63 mental health assessments. They are a tremendous asset for our officers on the road. I know I've said it before. These calls take a very long time sometimes, and just to get through the process of going through the hospitals and dealing with mental health and whatnot, it's not a fast process. Next. Just wanted to highlight our grants. Obviously, PJ has left us, but she left us in good hands, obviously with Pam and with the help of Jessica Wells, who helps her tremendously. We have trended pretty good in our grants. One grant that is not on there that's non-reimbursable was we received on Friday, but I'd already sent this to the committee, almost a $55,000 grant from the Department of Public Safety for body worn cameras. So we have to start conducting a refresh on those items. So that'll help us with that. But the TrueNarc, what you see down at the bottom, that Burns grant, that is a machine that actually can detect what type of narcotic, potential narcotic you have. And with the way that we're seeing fentanyl now, this costs about $31,000. We got a $14,000 grant, so we'll match that probably out of drug funds. And as I told you all at the end of the last meeting, the CALIA grant, that's to allow us to move forward with national accreditation. And the de-escalation grant, which I'm very excited about, we received almost $60,000. You see there, we have got a de-escalation machine that you've seen on TV where you have situation scenarios that are put before you, and the officer has to de-escalate the situation and use the different levels of the force continuum. So that's a mobile unit because we don't have a training place to put it. So we could use that in here if we wanted to, or we can put it over in one of the schools and allow it to run through those scenarios. Next. All right, got a lot of stuff. I'll move through it. We renewed the DD2 SPD MOU. We graduated our first 2 leadership cohorts and put a lot of emphasis, like Chief Waring is, on leadership and teaching people to be leaders rather than followers. And so we've adopted a program that we have found to be very successful so far, where these officers have to actually go and read books and write book reports about leadership and different leadership styles. So that's actually been really good for us. Obviously, we've had our first Dignity Project community forum. We're going to be completing tomorrow night our first Citizens Police Academy that we've had in years. That's been very successful. Participated on Cops on the Coop, Real Men Wear Pink for breast cancer, participated in Somerville and Cane Bay's Homecoming Parade, Shriners Parade, and all our SPD canine units recertified with their national canine certification. Next. Hosted Coffee with a Cop events, participated in 9/11 Heroes Run, conducted back to school supply drive, Cones with a Cop, assisted funeral for Captain Kenny Sott, National Fire Prevention Day, the parade, retirement of our longest serving police officer, Sergeant Frank Nigro, Hurricane Ian, the Teal Diva 5K run, implemented training uniforms. It's something I've been wanting to do for years and we just couldn't get it done. And I don't know why, but we have a lot of training and we're just big on uniformity. We need to look the same and be professional. So we came up with a uniform of a polo shirt or a t-shirt and a pair of trousers that are all the same color. So everybody's in training looks the same. Attended Charleston Southern University Somerville Day, worked in the garden at Katie's Crops. Next. Cones on a Cop is there again. Hosted National Night Out, participated in DEA's drug take back. I think we've got about 250 pounds of drugs that were turned in, narcotics and prescription drugs. Trunk or treat at Gehagen Park, trunk or treat at Seacoast Church, Halloween costume contest, conducted homelessness census, ultimate frisbee with Somerville Fire and Rescue, mentoring male students in DD2 schools in town, multiple PSAs on social media, traffic safety checkpoints with agency partners. Next. Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye, aye.
Okay, let's open up the Committee for Public Works and Water Supply.
Good evening. Yeah, this first item came, I think, as a request from a resident on Briarwood Lane last week. Did it come to you, Councilman Jenkins?
I think it was Mr. Brown.
It's Councilman Brown, yeah.
Down Briarwood Lane and the speed limit now is 25. So we can justify the 15, it's fine with me, but it's 25 now.
Yeah, most of our the residential streets, all of our neighborhood streets are 25, unless they're state roads and they're 30. But I think before we change it, maybe we collect some data, some speed data there and see what the speeds actually are before we just randomly change the speed limit.
I would, just as a comment, first off, I think it's almost impossible to go 25 miles an hour down Briarwood Lane. It's actually a single lane road. So, and I look back at what I would call my knee-jerk reaction to Laurel Street and moving it to 15. And I have tried my best to go 15 miles an hour down Laurel Street, including following policemen. And it is not possible to do that.
Go that slow?
To go that slow. I mean, your car just, well, you really can, but you have to really stop. And so, I mean, it just struck me that 20 or 25 miles an hour is pretty slow and pretty safe. And on Briarwood Lane, it
25 miles an hour is basically a nationwide standard for residential speed limits. Any slower than that.
Well, I drove down there, Russ, I drove down there at 25 and it was pretty cool. There wasn't a lot of traffic at that time because the time of day I went, wasn't nobody getting off of work, anything like that. I saw a couple golf carts. And then I drove back at 15. And I turned in the request because some people wanted to find out if they could get it down to 15. But I'd like to see you study and what you think it should be, because I think 25 is probably sufficient.
Yeah, so do we want to collect some data on it, or we just want to keep it at 25?
Well,
I guess that's
If
the
you,
committee.
if you can come up with a reason to consider 15,
I'm not gonna recommend the lower speed limit, but 15 miles an hour.
so, I think we're trying to, serve the people, and maybe some people have an idea that they'd like to see it lowered. But, maybe some caution signs or something like that, narrow road, something like that. I don't know whether that drop in the speed limit would have to be done. There may be
I
some
was gonna-
cautions,
I was gonna ask, how long is that road? What's the stretch on it?
Maybe 2,500 feet. It's not very long.
Less, somewhere between a 3/8 of a mile or quarter of a mile, somewhere to quarter mile and a half mile.
It's not
Is
long.
is the speed limit posted on that road right now?
It's posted on all of our routes.
Well, when I first saw this on agenda, I thought it was, a reasonable request. Just knowing Briarwood, I agree with Councilman Jenkins. It's essentially, it's a very narrow road. It's essentially a single lane road. If somebody's coming the other way, they better not be going 15, much less 25 when they pass each other. When I first got on council, we had at the time, these were the good old days before things blew up around here. But one of the biggest attended and most contentious meetings that I went to was the entirety of Briarwood Lane came before the planning committee about paving it. And of course, if it remained dirt, I think we wouldn't even be having this discussion because there's just no way, there was no way to drive on it dirt 25 miles an hour. I don't know whether asphalt has caused people to drive faster. I wouldn't drive 25 miles an hour on it. So I don't know where we go from here. I don't have a motion. I don't know if Councilman Tushbury has a motion.
I don't have a motion. What I don't want to do is have Mr. Cornett or his staff go on a wild goose chase if we have no intent of moving that speed limit. So
The only thing that I would say is that we make sure that the speed limit is posted on that road. If maybe you can just find that out, just for sure.
We'll find that out.
if-
It's easy to do.
And if it's not, we put up a sign, but if it is, then I agree that I think that it should just remain 25.
and I'll add a comment if I can, if maybe Chief Wright has somebody patrol that with a radar on every once in a while just to see what's going on. A little visibility may help.
Okay,
Anything else on item A? Item B. This came from a business owner on Barnfield Drive about widening the intersections of Berkeley Circle at Old Light Road and Berkeley Circle at Barnfield Drive. They have a lot of truck traffic that enters the industrial park on Barnfield. I guess some of the trucks are having trouble making there's radii off of Berkeley Circle and Old Light Road and the Barnfield. I've looked at it. I think this came through last year. I looked at it and there are some tire tracks on the curb at Old Light and Berkeley. We can widen it. At the time I had no funds to do it. And today I have no funds to do it. So
Any idea what funds would be needed to do it?
construction is not free. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just looking for an actual number.
I don't have a number. I've not really looked at it that closely to get quantities and get a number.
I would ask that at least you look into it and see how much it would cost. I've been there at least 3 times where I had to wait on a truck to actually make his turn, and you have to wait a long time because once he gets out there, he's got to do a maneuver to try to make it, and it is a problem.
We have very little industrial property in the town, and the Barnfield Park is very nice and some really good corporate citizens. And if they're if truck drivers are having these problems, I think we should try to assist them if we're serious about kind of moving away from relying on residential growth and pursuing commercial and industrial growth.
I would just add, I would encourage anyone to vote yes to continue the penny because that's a source of revenue that we could tap into for something like this that is for an intersection improvement and improve traffic flow through an area like
And
this.
that particular one, we need somebody in Berkeley County to vote for it, but yeah.
Berkeley has a penny on the tomorrow too.
I know.
Yeah, I'll look at it into it, try to figure out costs. I spent on what it take. Anything else? That's all I've got.
Okay, we
Motion to
will-
adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
All right, Ms. Rhonda, ready for the finance report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have your finance committee report, financial report for October in front of you. We have completed, I think, a third of the year thus far. For the revenue summary, for October, we've collected a little over $1 million. To date, 6.7 million, which is 16% of our revenue, which is typical for our budget year. On the expense summary, our total expenditures are just under 4 million. For a year-to-date total of 13 million, which is 32% of our year, which is typical of that. I would say that, want to point out under capital expenditures, since we don't have a capital expenditures in our budget. This actually is the road paving that we'll get reimbursed from CTC, that is in that category. For that. Revenues next. The revenue detail, first category, of course, is property taxes. Year to date is just over $1 million. Of course, those will start to come in December and January and February. The next section, licenses, permits, and fees. Total for the month, 278,000 for a total of a little over 2 million for year to date. I will point out that, I think I discussed this last month, building permits, year to date of 437,000. That is, that's significantly over last year. This time we had about 287,000. So I think we had 3 days that I saw that were significant. One was $121,000 item. Municipal court, on target at 33% of the revenue with year to date of 89,000. State revenues, a little above, ahead of budget, collected 259,000 for year to date of 1.3. We're right at 38% of our revenue total. Some of these items come in quarterly, some in monthly, so it kind of fluctuates. Next. Under miscellaneous revenues, we collected 56,000 this month for a total of 1.1 million, showing 75% of our revenue projection. Of course, included in there is the sale of real estate that was concluded in, I think, July, under sale of assets. Transfers is local hat. That's the only item that we have in that particular category. We're obviously right on target since we're doing that monthly.
Question on the interest income. Is there a reason that's so low?
I have not booked that, Councilman Jackson, yet. We've got some of our money invested, some at the state level, just haven't recorded that.
Okay.
It is going to be a better item than it has been in the last while. Impact fees, we collected 38,000 in impact fees for the month, for a total year to date of 600,000. We have spent a total of 173 this year. in the Shepherd's Park area, Doty Park, and some equipment for Parks and Rec. Next is hospitality tax and accommodations tax. We collected almost $400,000 this month in local H tax. Our expenses, which includes the transfer to the general fund, was 337. So we're I think right on target where we expected to be with that. Our local accommodations, we collected year to date 148,000. Total for the year is 2 million. It's about 40% of what we expected to be collect for the year. Last one is stormwater. Of course, these revenues do not come in again until December, January, and February. Our expenditures to date, or for the month, it's 126,000, to date 522,000. So it's just under 25% of our budget for expenditures. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Thank you.
Authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract with Carolina Waste and Recycling LLC for residential solid waste collections for a 3-year period with 4 one-year extensions at a cost of $12.45 per month per unit for weekly household garbage and recycling collections. This contract was publicly advertised and sealed bids were collected. This contract will be funded from the solid waste collection fee.
I hear a motion that we give Lisa the authority to sign this contract. Carolina Waste.
Second.
Who made the motion?
Oh, I'll make a motion.
Second, and if I could ask a question, the $12.45 per month, how long a period is that for 1 year or 3 years?
Is there an escalation?
There's a CPI escalation, but it has to be approved by council as of last year.
Oh, okay.
What is, while you're up, what is the current monthly per unit?
You're gonna ask that. $9.29 a month. So to break it down,
Close to 25% increase for
30%,
over how much?
30%. So 12, well, about 25, yeah. So 12.45 now, 8.45 of that, proposed 12.45, 8.45 of that is garbage, household garbage, $4 is recycling. And then 5.30 and 3.72. The recycling isn't going up as much as household garbage is.
Ross, let me ask you one question. Why 4-year or 1-year extension of cost of 45? You're doing that to lock in the rate?
No, so the rate, it's just not to rebid it, and we saw 25-30% increase this time. We'll keep the rate more steady for a longer period of time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're
Plus,
trying to
this
lock-
is
you're trying
after
to
I
lock in the
retire, so.
rate For 5 years.
I hear Ken going down the. So when we bid it out, there's, I mean, there's specifications in the bid package, but when these people put bids in, I understand there were 3 bids, is that right?
There was 3 bids, 4 responses. The 4th was a no bid. 4th response was
Okay.
no bid.
Did they know they were bidding for a specific period of time, or that was in the bid specs? That it was for a 3-year contract?
It said 3-year contract and 4 1-year extensions. But those extensions are up to council.
Right, I understand that. I was just wondering if there was, off the top of my head, whether there was any ability to modify that after the bids have come in, or if we're stuck with 3 with 4 1-year extensions at our request. It's a huge jump. We're gonna hear about it. I don't want to do it. I mean, we've raised everything we can possibly raise, from impact fees to stormwater fees to property taxes, and You know, now the cost of garbage is gonna go up 25%. Do we have any idea what folks in unincorporated Dorchester pay? Whether they're using some of the smaller companies like Priority Waste or,
I think, Ron, looked at that like $60 a quarter, what people are charging.
so if we,
That was just happened to be a person in my neighborhood that I recently saw a question about. Somebody had responded, they're paying $60 a quarter.
for 20 a month.
Yeah, and there's only a couple houses in my neighborhood.
Well, that's the only reason I see to do this, right? Is that we're kind of like an insurance company. We're pooling we're pooling our residents and negotiating on their behalf. And, you know, if we're in fact saving them $7.50 a month over what they could do on their own.
If we omitted recycling, it'd bring it back about what it is now.
That was my question are we comparing apples with apples? Does the county do recycling as well in their agreement?
County doesn't offer any curbside.
I didn't.
You have to privately contract. If you
Yeah.
live in one of our donut holes and Quail Arbor, Salisbury, I mean, there are plenty, Iron Gate, I mean, it's just checkerboard. You drive down the street and one day and you'll see, you know, 60-70% of the houses have our Carolina Waste. And if you go another day, it can be 2 or 3 or 4 different companies that those in the town can choose from to individually contract with. And if we're able to save them $7-8 a month, then I guess we should continue doing it. If we were saving them $1 or $2 a month, I'd say let's just get out of it. Let people hire their own garbage companies.
Well, I guess forgetting which side of the fence I may be on recycling. I mean, you know, the question is, recycling is a third of what we're paying. And if we're getting bang for the buck on that, I'd be surprised, but I'm okay with where we are. I don't think recycling the way it's happening right now is something that we're getting full value for money on.
Mr.
Oh.
Cornett, the only comments I have, I understand that their bid is substantially lower than the other closest bid for this work, correct?
The 3 bids we received, Carolina Waste was $12.45 per unit per month. Another one was $15.69 per month, and the third was $18 a month.
So while I appreciate the lower cost, I have had several calls, including an incident in Summer Haven, where customer service and responsiveness have not been necessarily the best. I do like the price compared to the alternatives, but if we could emphasize customer service to our citizens, I'd appreciate it.
We have done a lot of that in the last several months, and despite those incidents, it has overall gotten better.
Do you
Appreciate that.
Do you detect, I mean, this was, and maybe it was just that Carolina Waste was, when they came on board, how long have they been with us?
5 years.
5 years. When Carolina Waste came on board, it was like night and day from the predecessor. I mean, the customer service was phenomenal compared to their predecessor. And have you detected a decline in their customer service, or do we just get over the honeymoon effect and we know we've repressed all recollections of their predecessor?
They're very responsive. When we ask them to address something, I don't think customer service has declined. I mean, there are misses. There's always going to be misses.
It just seems like I've been aware of more misses and more problems with, you know, kind of reckless use of equipment where the trash cans have been knocked over in the street, not picked up, trash in the street. I don't recall that the first 3 or 4 years that we had Carolina Waste, but it may have just been that it was happening so infrequently compared to their predecessor that I just didn't
Yeah,
notice.
I'll tell you, the service we've gotten from them compared to our predecessor has been like night and day.
That's been largely my observation as well.
And if we did switch, what's gonna happen is the people that are servicing our routes are gonna go jump to the new company that's got the new contract and. I don't think
Oh,
we'll see
that
much
and
of
that
it.
happens always.
And that would happen, yeah.
I've talked with their supervisor on several occasions. And they've been very responsive. After I've called the supervisor, and Bill, the complaints I've gotten are the ones like you're talking about, more so than Waste Pro was. It's been more about leaving cans, the guys being, or whatever, whether it's the truck dumping the can like it has, and the can end up in the street, or, and sometimes there's people not having the cans out. It's not all their fault. But when Lisa's talked to me about it, I've called down there, I forget the guy's name I've talked to, but they on top of it right away. I mean, it's taken care of. A couple of times, maybe 4 or 5 times I've called in 3 years. And they do, Carolina Waste does a good job about taking care of it, just like Russ says. I hadn't gotten involved in it many times, but the times I've gotten involved in it, they do a good job. And while I got the floor, I can tell you something. We don't want to get into the garbage business where we're dealing with 3 or 4 garbage companies, because that will be a nightmare, like you ain't ever seen before. It's hard enough dealing with one garbage company.
I was actually contemplating dealing with 0, but you know, if we're not saving, I mean, if we're able to say, if we just did free market, everybody just contracts with their own garbage company. If the result is our citizens are paying $7 or $8 more a month, then, you know, if we're able to save them $7 or $8 a month because we're kind of negotiating. I just see this as we're just negotiating on their behalf. We've got however many thousand households. We should have leverage. It should cost. We should get a much better deal with a garbage company than an individual living in an unincorporated donut hole could get. But if it turns out that people are able to get this service for just $2 or $3 more a month, I'd say just get out of it. Let the market decide. But if it's $7, $8 a month, I'm gonna vote for it, even though, I mean, our folks are just getting hammered.
I agree. If we were to let the citizens do their own, though, it'd be a madhouse. I mean, you've got neighborhoods, you've got different companies would be coming in on different days. It would be crazy. I think that even though it's going up, it looks like $3 and some change. It's well worth our citizens to go ahead and keep with Carolina Waste. And with saying that, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and authorize the town administrator to enter into the contract with Carolina Waste and Recycling.
I think we have that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a motion and a second on the floor.
Any more discussion? Just one of the things, I've had great service with Carolina Waste. I survived waste.
Make that a t-shirt.
That's exactly what I was thinking. You need a t-shirt.
Survived Waste Pro, so this company is doing a pretty good job. The only question I had was, you know, why give them a 4-year extension, but it seems to be feasible. We're going up about $3.
And I talked to the manager and he explained to me, it's personnel costs. I mean, they're having to pay the people more to do the work, to get people to do the work.
But I think it's
Obviously
good for
fuel
us
costs
to
too.
be locking in the rate.
Well, this was a 2-part process, right? I mean, we authorized Ms. Wallace to enter this contract, and I presume that then we're gonna have to vote to raise the fee.
And we're gonna talk to them about trying to negotiate a little bit of that.
Okay, all in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, voting aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorize the town administrator to extend the contract with Tetra Tech Incorporated for disaster debris monitoring through the end of 2023.
Okay, got a motion on this. I'll make a motion. We authorize the administrator to extend this contract.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorization to give formerly approved surplus police vehicles units 264 and 267, 2014 Dodge Chargers with high mileage to the First Circuit Solicitor's Office and the Citadel Department of Public Safety.
Make a motion. We authorize this.
I'll second.
Motion made, motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have a question, Chief. You know, in the past, when we surplus things, we put them on, I guess, govdeals.com or whatever. What do we know? What would we get if?
So these vehicles were surplus last month by you all, and there was 4 of them. 2 of them were marked, and these are the 2 that were marked. I know in the past, we gifted 4 vehicles, I believe it was, to Holly Hill Police Department about 3 years ago, but they were fully outfitted.
Right.
Normally, we would take these, sell them on Gov Deals and get anywhere between, depending on mileage, in between $5,000 to $8,000. Certainly I want to make money for the town, but it kind of came to us on bended knee. The First Circuit Solicitor's Office just added an investigator. They don't have a car for them. So they spoke to us about it. Citadel Department of Public Safety, obviously. Frank Nagar went down there. Mike Turner's the chief there. He used to work with us, and they're low on vehicles and budget. So I was kind of in the situation where I felt being good stewards to help our fellow governments, agencies.
Do
But
you think these 2 units would get between 5 and 8 or less?
that's pretty much it. I think maybe 5. But I said 8 because just depends on, everybody needs cars right now.
What's an auction, you know?
Yes, sir. But it's really hard to get vehicles right now. And these are old vehicles. And I was really surprised that both of them were very happy that we would even discuss it.
And I don't, you may be right. I don't recall the Holly Hill, but I know that we had gifted some to Lincolnville.
Yes, sir. In the years past, we
I
did.
think Ridgeville.
We did Holly Hill, I think 3 or 4 years ago under Chief Rogers. And that we gave them fully outfitted vehicles with everything in them. We just took the stripes off. I'm not asking to do that, but
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Okay. I just.
Any more discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Authorization for the town administrator to enter into a contract for design services with Keck and Wood Incorporated for a new sidewalk on West First North Street from Bryan Street to Main Street for a cost of $25,300. Funds to come from budgeted federal community development block grant. The firm was selected based on a request for qualifications.
Make a motion. We authorize this.
I second this. Yeah.
A motion made, seconded. Any discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by raising your right hand, voting aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry. I believe it's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We got it on the executive session. Oh, what was that session?
You adjourn.
Okay. Adjourn.
My name is Larry Jameson and I own land on Laurel Street. I don't have no problem with the tennis court, shuffleboard, whatever you want to put there. But where do people go to park? Because when I go to cut grass, I pick up baby diapers, Chinese boxes, juice boxes, everything's out there. They're already parking on the street side, on the house side, rather than on the playground side. So y'all got $100,000 for a parking lot?
No, sir.
So where we gonna park?
We're working on that now.
Very good.
Did we vote?
Thank you, Larry.
You don't say that out loud, but that's exactly where he we didn't vote.
Oh. I made a motion.
And I second.